Hello, so my name is Cody Waits. I'm an account manager with Palco. I'm also an EVV implementation lead with Palco. So as EVV has been implementing this entire year across the country, I've been doing a lot of these trainings for different states and different programs, and I'm really looking forward to working with you in New Mexico and trying to get this implementation off the ground and run as smoothly as possible. Been doing this for a little over 3 years now, and really enjoy this and love to do these trainings and interact with people. So for Palco, our mission is we serve people. We provide services that enable individuals to live independent lives where they are empowered to make their own choices about what's best for them. We embrace diversity of thought and the promise of new ideas honed by experience and enhanced by technology. We're also a leader in Medicaid. We're a national industry leader providing premium FMS services to 9 states and growing. We've got 14 different programs in those states. We've been at the forefront of pioneering technologies to support public and HCBS programs. This is, self-direction in the late 90s, VD HCBS in the mid-2000s, and now EVV. We're focused on industry standards and compliance, particularly in EVV, where we've implemented across multiple states. We've had several states this year that we've implemented this in, like I had said previously. And we've actually been in New Mexico providing service since 2017. Electronic visit verification is what we're here to talk about today, and that is a technology solution which electronically verifies that home and community-based services are actually delivered to people needing those services by documenting the precise time service begins and ends. And this is all required because of a federal mandate. So Section 12006 of the 21st Century Cures Act requires all state Medicaid agencies to implement an EVV solution to manage their personal care services by January 1st of 2021 and for all home health services by January 1st, 2023. And in the federal mandate, it talks about these 6 data points. These are the 6 data points that EVV captures to make it compliant, and that is the type of service that's being performed, who is receiving the service, the date of the service, the location of the service, who is providing the service, and the time that the service begins and ends. So for the statewide EVV solution, we have partnered with a company called Fiserv, who have provided software solutions for the last decade at least, and they provide our clients with one of the best EVV platforms that exists nationwide. Authenticare by Fiserv is compliant with the Cures Act. It is very user-friendly and secure. All providers must use Authenticare for Medicaid programs. So if you are currently using an EVV system, you will have to switch systems. Palco's EVV solution is by Fiserv is called Authenticare, and that offers agencies the choice of EVV via a mobile application or telephony via a landline phone. Now, we're only going to be talking about the telephony option, and it says landline phone there, but it's also cell phone as well. So just want to knock that out before we get too far into the presentation. But we're just going to be talking about the telephony IVR option today. The mobile application will be a part of a different rollout that will happen later in 2021. Agencies will be responsible for working with their employees to designate what method will be used and registering them in Authenticare. We're going to talk about that later in the training. And kind of what I've hinted at is we'll be implementing this in 2 different phases. Telephony is going to happen in phase 1, and that starts on January 1st. Palco will enroll providers, and those providers will continue to bill Omnicade or Focus via a payment request form for MeVia directly. DD waiver and agency-based are part of this as well. Supports waiver providers will continue to bill Conduit. MeVia and participant-directed supports waivers providers will continue to bill Focus. In phase 2, that's when we're going to bring in the mobile application. Providers will need to keep their enrollment information updated. And then for agencies in MeVia and participant-directed supports waiver, payment request forms will no longer be needed. And we'll obviously send out communication about that when that's going to happen. So what services require EVV in this agency training that we're talking about here? So if you use any of the services that are listed on your screen, you will be required to use EVV starting January 1st, 2021. So if you're using the 99509 Homemaker Personal Care Services, T1005SD Respite Services, T2033 In-Home Living Supports, and then DD Waiver Respite, the DD Waiver Respite Group, DD Waiver Customized In-Home Supports, Family Natural Supports, and DD Waiver Customized In-Home Supports, Independent Living. Just want to make sure that if you are here for in-home living supports, you're in the correct training, because those are technically agency services, and they're done through agencies. So I've already seen some questions in chat. We're going to go ahead and stop. If you have any questions about anything that we just listed, we'll go ahead and talk about those and get those answered in chat. I'm going to go back to that last screen because that is something that a lot of people have asked me about in previous trainings. So we'll go to that last screen just so you know these are the services that require EVV through agencies. Obviously, people won't be able to hear me, but if you see anybody that might be having some trouble in hearing the presentation today, this is actually being recorded right now, so we will post this video to YouTube, and that way they can follow along at a later time. I've seen a couple that are asking about EORs that hire agencies. So this training is specific to agencies. I've seen some people refer to that some of the mailings for some of these trainings came in a little bit late. That's okay. Those trainings took place last week, but they are on our website. We have YouTube links there where you can go and visit those. And I believe we've listed the Palco First website link in the chat a few times, so we'll discuss that here. Or you can go ahead and click on that and get to the links from there. So if you do not see your service listed here, like community navigation, this is not the training for you. You'll continue to use the way that you'll continue to use the processes that you're using right now. I've seen a lot of questions about EORs. So this training is specifically for agencies. If you are an EOR, you will need to go ahead and fill out the entire EOR transition packet. This training is not necessarily for you specifically, but just to let you know that you can go, you'll need to fill out that EOR transition packet. I keep seeing some more on trainings for the packets or EORs. This will not be the training for you if you are an EOR. Somebody else asked, will we need to fill out time cards anymore if we're using EVV? No, so that's a good question. EVV will actually get rid of those time cards, but it is only specific to these services. If it's any other services, you'll continue to do the same process that you have been doing. I see a couple questions about forgetting to call in. I see some other questions about, wait times on customer service numbers, stuff like that. That's not exactly, we're going to cover some of that a little bit later, so that might wait till the end. So I see a couple questions about no landline, stuff like that. Since I already kind of talked about that in this section, I'll go ahead and say you can, that accompanying flyer that said that you can't use your participant's landline, that went out before we were issued a change on that. So participants can use, or the workers can use a cell phone or a landline phone there. Again, if there are any questions about EORs in this chat, you are in the wrong training. Any questions that you might have, you'll need to direct those to the Consolidated Care line. And if they can't answer those questions, they'll direct those to us at Palco. I see a couple other questions about how your location is captured. We'll go over that here later. So I am seeing a lot of the same questions having to do with EVV, and then other questions that we'll discuss in later sections. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you, I did see some questions about scheduling and how that works if you're clocking it, if you work 24/7. So that is one of those things where you'll need to speak with. If you have questions about your schedule, you'll need to follow that up with your supervisor if it is a 24/7 thing about your schedule and when you'll actually have to clock in and out. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about telephony and IVR. So what is telephony slash IVR? Well, Authenticare's Telephony IVR software allows you to utilize any phone to clock in and out and meet the criteria of the 21st Century Cures Act. Interactive voice recognition is sometimes referred to as telephony. More often than not, you will be able, we will refer to that as telephony. Again, that phone can be a landline phone or a cell phone. Anything that has a touch-tone phone. And then in phase 2, we're going to introduce the mobile device application. So if you have a smartphone or a smart device, tablet, things like that, we will do that implementation in phase 2, and we'll roll out a different training on that when that comes. So using telephony, so you're going to use you can use the participant's landline phone or your cell phone, and you're going to follow the IVR instruction sheet to dial a toll-free number at the beginning and end of your visit. We'll be posting in the chat where you can go to find all of this information, including this IVR instruction sheet, this telephony instruction sheet. It's going to be very crucial. I always tell people to print it out if you can and have that handy. Usually put it right by the phone. It will have step-by-step instructions about those prompts that you'll hear, and it will walk you through the entire process. So at the start of your visit, you're going to dial that toll-free number and enter your worker ID. And then they'll follow several prompts to clock in. And then at the end of your visit, you're going to dial that toll-free number again. You're going to enter your worker ID, and then you're going to follow the prompts to clock out. So I'll actually play a version of that here in a second. So we'll go over that, and I'll play that, and you'll be able to hear the audio and exactly what that sounds like. So when you're logging your service code, make sure to select the correct code for the correct waiver. The system will also present service codes for other programs, those of which you will not need to select. So you'll hear a bunch of different service codes there. Make sure that you are very careful when you hear your specific service code. Now, the first couple times you might have to listen to it through the entire menu through before making your selection, but eventually it'll probably become second nature and you'll be able to clock in and out with ease. So I'm going to go ahead and play a recording of that call. I apologize for the sound quality. It is off of a phone, so we'll go ahead and play that now.
Welcome to Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Enter your worker ID followed by the pound sign. To check in, press 1. To check out, press 2. Please enter your client ID followed by the pound sign. If the service is Nivea Homemaker Direct Support, press 1. If the service is Nivea In-Home Living Support, press 2. If the service is Nivea Respite, press 3. If the service is DD Waiver Respite Group, press 4. If you are Harry Nathan and you work for Desktop Agency Incorporated and you are providing DD Waiver Respite Group for Peter T. Rico, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2. Your check-in was successful at 10:50 a.m. To return to the main menu, press 1. To end this call, press 2. Thank you for calling Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Goodbye.
All right, so that's a sample of what a telephony phone call will sound like in the system. Again, you can find all those prompts and know exactly what's coming from that instruction sheet that's listed on our website. Now, I've seen a couple people ask what the number is that they will be calling into, and that number is going to be 1-800-222-2943, and this will be on that user guide as well. So like I said, I would have it printed out or available handy so that you know exactly that number and when you that number when you're clocking in and clocking out. So being paid for services. So to be paid for services in Phase 1 for the MIVIA and supports waiver, so self-directed providers, they'll submit vendor payment requests to Conduit. DD waiver and supports waiver, non-self-directed providers will continue to bill Omnicade. Non-EVV services are not impacted. You will continue to follow your current practices. And then this is how EVV shifts turn into claims. So the employees are going to clock in using EVV. Shifts are stored in Authenticare. Agencies submit vendor payment requests to Focus if MIA, VIA, or self-directed supports waiver. And then the agency submits 837s to Omnicade if DD waiver or supports waiver, the non-self-directed. And then agencies process employee payments. And now we're going to talk about the admin role in the Authenticare site. So the provider admin role, the Authenticare admin site will be used to add workers, create logins, terminate workers, reset passwords, and control who actually has access to the agency account. So each of the individuals who require credentials will receive two different emails. One of them will contain their username, and then the other one will contain a temporary password. And then when you log in using that password for the first time, they will actually prompt you to create a new password. So a password that you're more used to, something that you can easily remember. And these credentials usually take about 1 to 2 business days to be issued. And these credentials will be used to create your shift in Fiserv's Authenticare Telephony IVR system, which will utilize the participant's home landline phone or a cell phone. Provider administrators will set up their workers in Authenticare and be responsible for maintaining workers, including setup and terminations. Scheduling feature will not be used, so all visits will be captured as an unscheduled visit. The user guide for these provider agencies will be up on the Palco First website. We're still waiting on a couple things to come through on the Fiserv side of things, but we'll have that up very shortly. This is just going to show you some of the screens that this is what the admin site will actually look like. Once you log into the Authenticare system, this is what it will look like. So on the main page, you're going to hover over Create and select New Worker, or you can just click below on the Worker link in the Entities section. The Worker Entities page settings will display, and it will have a lot of these different boxes for you to fill in. So you'll need to complete all the required fields there for the worker. Those are marked with an asterisk. You'll include the worker address, the phone number, all that stuff located in the top right corner. The sections titled holidays, days off, work hours, you don't have to worry about those. Those are disregarded. And then once the fields have been completed, please press the Save button at the bottom of the screen. If you press Save and it doesn't go through, that's probably because you might have missed an area. Just make sure and fill that out and make sure that you hit each one of those required fields. Once it does complete that save, it will assign the worker a unique Authenticare worker ID. And then for maintaining workers, the instructions for maintaining workers, such as creating logins, terminating workers, password resets, who has access to all of this. This will be available in a user guide. Again, this user guide will be available soon. We're waiting on some more information from Fiserv and some screenshots and things like that. And all of this information will be on our website, palcofirst.com/New Mexico. We're going to have a frequently asked questions document up there that will cover a lot of different questions. EVV user guide for telephony will be there. PowerPoint training slides, again, these will be up there. Training recordings, we're going to have links to this training. Like I said, we're recording this to put on our YouTube page. And then agency Authenticare user guides, which we'll have up there later this week, hopefully. So some next steps, the agency administrator should make sure they have registered with Authenticare and obtained your credentials. They should ensure all employers are registered in Authenticare. And then agency administrators should relay information and instructions for EVV to all employees providing those services that mandate EVV and ensure everyone is prepared for go live on January 1st. So I believe this is our final question and answer period, so we're going to start taking some questions from the chat. I know it's been a very active chat, so please forgive us if we miss out on some. We're trying as best we can to answer those as much as possible. We'll also answer some of those aloud. We might not be able to get to all of them, or we might not answer some of them if they aren't relevant to what we've been discussing. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor up to some of my team so they can start answering some questions. And I'm going to go ahead and put this slide up next so that you can see some additional support and where you can find that information. Somebody did ask, how does the EVV system capture location if you're not using a landline? So that's a great question. Very good question. So if you're using a cell phone, most of the time you'll have location services on, and they can acquire your location when you clock in. It's only recorded when you clock in and out. If those location services are on, that's how it will capture it. If it's not on, the cell phone will use the cell phone towers to ping a general location where you are.
Cody, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. This is Katie. I want to clarify one thing I put in the chat because I think it was a little confusing. I want to make sure I answer it correctly. So someone had asked about payment request forms. And Cody, can you just clarify for me? I think I misspoke about the Palco payment request form. That's phase 2, correct?
Yes. Palco.
Okay, so for now, you guys will continue your usual process using the payment request form that exists now, and the Palco payment request form will come later in 2021. So I was going a little fast and I misspoke on that in the chat, so I wanted to make sure I answered that for the person who was asking, answered it correctly, rather.
And just so you know, I just got an update about 10 minutes ago that these slides are active on our website, so you can go to our website and look at these slides and have them downloaded so you can look at them at a later date.
A few questions I can go through that were in the chat. One question that was asked is about agencies being able to see when employees are called in. So Cody, do you want to mention about reporting from Authenticare?
Yes. So if you're using the Authenticare admin site, there are several reports that you can actually run, and you can group those however you like. If you're wanting to do like an individual worker, you can see how their clock-ins and clock-outs are. You can see details about those. Or if you wanted to do multiple workers or multiple workers for one participant or any of the above, you can actually have detailed reports in those. I know that there's a lot of different reports that have to do with claims and clock-in, time entries, things like that. They can also be exported to a PDF file or an Excel file. There's a couple other selections there if you're looking to export some of those reports.
Another question, this is Katie again, that I'm seeing a lot of is what phone do I use? Do I have to use the same phone over and over again? Can I use the participant's phone? Can it be the employee's phone? Whose phone can be used to call in? And the answer to that is any phone. Does not have to be the same phone. It can be any phone that's available. There's questions about what if I'm here, what if I'm there, what if I'm in another state or on vacation, you know, what do I do then? Again, any phone can be used to clock in and out. So if you're providing those authorized services for one of the EVV services, you want to be sure you have a phone so that you're able to clock in and clock out. So it's the employee's working for the agencies that are going to be the ones to clock in and clock out using whatever phone is available to them at that visit. I hope that is clear. And then someone, just to follow up on my earlier comment, someone said the payment request form is still required and nothing will change with that process. Correct, and that is correct for right now. That process is going to stay the same. Nothing has changed with that. Someone asked about being able to document daily notes. That's not something that's available right now, but maybe coming down the line as we roll out other formats of EVV. Maybe something that is available later on. A lot of questions about worker IDs. We've answered this a few times, but if you need your ID and you don't have it, one, your agency can provide that to you when they're registering you. It will be available in Authenticare. They'll set that up, but also you can call the Consolidated Customer Service Center that's available here on the screen. They have access to ID numbers that we've provided them.
Katie, this is Carolee. Can I jump in just for a second?
Please, go ahead.
There was a question about notes, and although the notes aren't available in the system right now, if you do have a requirement for doing notes for the service that you provide, that requirement will not change, and so you would still need to, you can follow up with your supervisor on how best to do that. There are certain services that require documentation of notes.
Right. Nothing has changed with the way you document your shifts, except for you're just capturing the clock in, clock out in real time. Thanks, Carolee. I know there's quite a few questions in here about 24/7 services, and that's something that we had in the morning session as well. So we've escalated that to some of our partners to get an answer, and we will publish that in our updated FAQ here in the next week or so. So for those of you asking about 24/7 services, just hang in there. We're going to get an answer for you and get that information out. We want to make sure that the information we're sharing is accurate more than anything, and so just bear with us while we get an answer to that. Same thing with services that coincide, two services that coincide at the same time. I know there's a question about that. We'll look into that as well. There's a lot of questions about when do I clock in if I live with the person, or, you know, this is how my day goes, when do I clock in? That's not something we can really advise you on, but we recommend you talking to, you know, the agency who you work for and working with them to figure out, you know, how EVV is going to be implemented for you. Again, on the 24/7 services, that's something we're still working on getting an answer for. I said it a couple times, but the PRF, payment request form, has not changed for January. Nothing has changed with that for right now. A lot of questions about registration again. So Cody, can you go back to that slide that talks about the email that agencies need to send? Agency administrators, this is a really important slide for you, probably the biggest takeaway from this training. You need to reach out to this email box with all of this information Cody is showing here on the slide, and make sure that you've asked to be registered in Authenticare. They will give you your credentials to the website, and that is how you as an agency are going to register your workers. So it's important that you get this information, and you can go download the slides, as Cody said, so you have it saved somewhere. But it's very important that you reach out to Authenticare and get registered in the system. There's a few questions about what if you're in an area with no cell service or no landline. Great question. That's a policy decision that the state is still looking at and reviewing. So that will be another one that will be updated in our FAQ. As soon as we have that information, we will get it out to people. It's not something we have an answer for right this moment. Just looking at the chat, if anyone has any other ones you want to jump in, go ahead. A lot of questions about in-home living support, how many hours need to be worked, when do I clock in? Those aren't things I can answer right this moment. Someone is asking if we have information in Spanish for the check-in, check-out process. We do. We'll be posting that later on today. We have a resource from Fiserv for State Authenticare that we can post with some Spanish instructions that agencies can share with their staff if that helps. Absolutely can provide that resource. Someone asked, I take my child camping in our RV, which is an extension of the home. Is that location okay? Absolutely. That is fine. People are asking if the clocking in and clocking out transfers to Focus, and the answer to that is yes, it does. Someone asked if providers need to submit new vendor agreements to Palco. They do not. We are transferring that information. Does the agency use EVV data to create an invoice? I believe the answer to that is not at this time. Carolee, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that right now you're going to follow your normal process of billing.
Yeah, this is Charlie. If the current process is to create an invoice and then to have a PRF, to have the EOR sign the PRF, that stays the same process.
Someone asked if people are going to be notified as information is updated, like the FAQ I mentioned. We absolutely can work with the Department of Health to ask if they can blast those kind of things out. A lot of the information Cody talked about just now is he showed some screenshots and stuff of how to add workers. Like he mentioned, we're in the process of getting a user guide from Authenticare for agencies with screenshots and instructions. So as soon as we have that, we'll also work with the Department of Health to see if they can email that out to agencies to help make the information, more quickly available to you. If you have not seen anything in a while, you're welcome to check the Palco website for information and gather that. Someone said, you keep saying agency they work for me via a self-directed waiver. There is no agency. And this training is for agencies. So if you are in this training, but you are, involved in self-direction and maybe you work directly for an employer of record who may be the participant who receives services, this training is not for you. So the reason why we're referring to agencies is because this training is specifically for agency providers who employ folks who work, directly for them as an agency. So hopefully that helps provide some clarification. So a lot of questions about what if I forget to clock in and clock out, and so if that happens, you can certainly add those shifts in just like you do now. We don't want it to happen a lot, but you can follow the usual process to have a manual update or edit just like you do now. A lot of comments and questions about why this process is starting now in the short time frame. All I can say to that is I recognize this is a big change for, agencies and folks who provide services. I realize that it's a lot of work that has to happen for the federal mandate. And, all I can offer is, this information is coming out as quickly as possible as it's being made available. So we appreciate you guys attending training today and getting this information. And we're certainly available, to help. Cody, if you want to go back to the, additional support slide, I think that there's some information there for folks if you have further questions or need assistance. There's a question about meetings in Spanish. We did do several last week. on the self-directed side in Spanish. One of those is recorded. Like I mentioned, we'll be posting a Spanish resource as well that you can check on. We do not have this agency training available in Spanish at this time. If I'm unable to call/clock in, can I call and clock in at a later time? The answer to that would be no. Part of the federal mandate in being in compliance is that this happens in real time, that those 6 data points are captured in real time. So it's important that you do your best to comply with EVV when the services are starting and clocking out when the services are ending. Someone asked about going out of state. This will work. The IVR platform works even outside of New Mexico. You don't have to be in New Mexico to call in and call out. So if services are authorized and you're scheduled with the agency, then you can work with them, and the clock in and clock out will still work. Carolee put a clarification in the chat that I'll mention aloud because I know that it's come up quite a few times. For the questions about community direct supports, this is not an EVV service. So Cody, if you want to show that slide again with the required services, that the services that require EVV, I'm sorry, that might be helpful to folks who are still listening. Someone asked if someone forgets to clock in and clock out. It keeps coming up, and I keep answering it. That process is going to be the same as it is now for recording your time. If you forget for some reason, your phone isn't working, whatever the case may be in that moment, and you're not able to clock in or clock out, you're going to follow the same process you follow now. For the folks in the chat, if you can refrain from just putting in your questions, that will help us get through things a little quicker. I realize that this information is a lot to take in, and it might be, stressful, but if you can refrain from putting your feedback or comments in the chat, that will help us focus on getting people's questions answered. Someone asked, what if you can't get through on that 800 number? We don't anticipate that happening. This is a 24/7, 365 days a year toll-free phone number that is available for clocking in and out. Fiserv, the software provider of this EVV solution, provide this service in several states across the U.S. And several very large programs, just like New Mexico, and so we certainly don't anticipate any issues. Of course, things come up, but it should be fine. Again, a lot of questions about 24/7. I don't have an answer to that at this time. Like I mentioned, we've reached out to folks at the state to provide some guidance on that. And so when we have that information, we will certainly push that out to folks. Someone asked about knowing the amount to bill for. I can't comment on that. I mean, if you know the amount you bill for now, I don't foresee how that process would be any different. All you're doing is working with your staff to have them clock in and clock out in real time to make sure the EVV data is captured. Someone asked if you forget to clock in, do you get paid? That's something you need to talk to your agency about and make sure you are aware of the process that agency uses to record time if someone is not able to clock in or clock out. Few questions about authorized representatives in place of employer of records. I'm not sure how to answer that question. This training is geared specifically at agencies who have several employees providing services, and so those agencies and their, staff are who this training is really geared at. Quite a few questions about the consolidated consolidated customer service center and long wait times. Palco is not in charge of that call center, so it's not something we can speak to with regards to issues or concerns. But you can certainly we will certainly relay this information to folks at the state so they're aware of everybody's concerns. Like Lexi posted, you can always review the information on the Palco website before calling and see if you can get your questions answered in those FAQs and with the information that's available before calling. Carolee, there's quite a few questions about in-home family supports and agencies. I don't know if you have any guidance on that other than what I've shared, but I'll give you an opportunity if you have anything you want to add to that.
I think you covered it, but basically if you're providing in-home living support, then you're an employee working for an agency or you're a contractor contracted by the agency. In the case of the employees, you'll be submitting your time to the agency through EVV for those services for in-home living support. I think that should cover it.
All right.
Carolee, do you want to answer that last question? So again, we're at the end of our training and I'm still seeing questions coming in about, is this training for me? So again, this training was geared at agencies who provide services, who employ multiple employees. If you work for a individual, one person, like you provide care for Bob Smith and Bob Smith is your employer, then this training was not geared at you. That training is available on YouTube. There's links on our website. We recorded that training last week. This training is geared at agencies who provide services.
All right. Well,
yep.
Thanks, I'll go ahead and end things here, but just want to thank everybody for attending. And like I said, we'll be updating our FAQs with some of the information from these trainings, and we'll also be uploading this training to YouTube here shortly. So I want to thank you all so much and hope you have a good rest of your day.